Can we just be honest about something? The only reason you're here today and I'm here today is because of this one line. This one line that happens to be on the case, sound by Bose. Because in your head you're thinking, wait a minute, is it possible for me to get Bose level things but pay Motorola level money? Huh? No. But that doesn't mean this is a bad thing. The Moto Buds Plus is $110, and in this video I'm going to show you how for $110 this thing is actually surprisingly capable. It's going to surprise you because it surprised me on multiple fronts. And then I'm also going to show you that despite all its achievements, despite all its capabilities, how it has one fatal flaw that makes me stop short of actually recommending this. So let's get started. So how about we just cut right to the chase and talk about the stuff that really matters, and then we'll move on to the nice to haves. Let's talk about active noise cancellation. Okay, you're going to see a graph up on your screen. That graph has two lines. The top line is a reference line or a noise signal, and then it has a bottom line which is the noise reduced signal. This bottom line, the lower it is, the more reduction the Moto Buds Plus actually does. And you can see that it's about, an average of about 20 decibels or so, maybe a little more in some regions. And honestly, for the 110 price category, this is very good. Now, this whole graph makes more sense if you actually compare it with something else. So here's another line. That's the performance of the OnePlus Buds Pro 2 from last year, this year, because that's also available for around this price on the Amazon marketplace or what have you. And you can see that it's actually a little better, especially in the higher frequencies. The Moto Buds Plus actually beats it. So it's better than the last year's flagship of another manufacturer, and it still costs $110 out of the gate. Looks promising, hey? What about transparency though? Well, here's another graph. Same reference line, but now the second line should match the reference line, meaning the transparency mode is reproducing the reference signal one-to-one, actual transparency. On something like the Apple AirPods Pro, this is pretty much smack one-to-one. On the Moto Buds Plus, not so much. Again, in the high frequencies, you can see that it actually reduces some of that outside sound, but in the low frequencies and the mid frequencies, it actually does a pretty good job. Mind you, this kind of performance, just a year and a half back, it wouldn't exist. Wouldn't exist at this price point. It would barely exist at the $300 price point 2 years ago. Now we're seeing it at the $110 price point. This is very, very good. Then you've got the sound quality. Okay. Frequency response is something that not everyone knows how to read. Let me make this very, very simple for you. You've got a graph in front of you. There's bass, mids, and highs. The bass should be elevated, which means the graph should be up. How much of an elevation determines how much bass there is. It's a little more than just that. But I'm going to leave it at that for the purpose of this video. Those of you who know how to read this will know how to read this. Those of you who don't, let me explain what this means. It's weird as heck. There is a very, very exaggerated bass, especially in the sub bass, which is kind of what Bose is known for, because that's what they do on their earbuds as well. So, this is understandable. And then the mids and the highs come into play. And honestly, in my listening experience, it was a bit weird. There's something very odd about the vocals, and I don't think this is a very natural sounding IEM. This is a fun sounding IEM. So for the people who are looking for a fun sound, elevated bass, it's reasonably clean sounding, but it is a weird sound signature that's exaggerated, but not in the greatest way. Like, there's some naturalness that you definitely lose. So in my opinion, it's not fantastic. But for someone looking for a fun sound at around $100, you could do far worse than this as well. You can also do better than this. I think the OnePlus Buds Pro 2 with a little bit of EQ does better. I think the Nothing Ear A with a little bit of EQ is also a more interesting proposition in some ways, and a little cheaper, but overall not bad sound. Now, this does come with some presets and an EQ of its own. But here's the weird thing. The EQ, it's a 10-band EQ, which is fantastic. But why don't you take a look at this picture and tell me if you can figure out which band is which frequency. Yeah, it's completely unlabeled. Completely unlabeled. Who does that? For the average user, I know they're not going to figure out what frequency band to manipulate, but if you're going to give me a 10-band EQ, I mean, tell me which band is which, right? Either ways, point is, with a little EQ, you can improve this, but honestly, the sound is a little bit weird. I'm not going to go at this from an audiophile point of view, but it might be better tuned than what Motorola would have come up with by its own. Combine that with the good ANC and good transparency, and people are really not going to care. Which brings me to the features. Honestly, it's about the same for everything these days. I'm just going to put up a feature list on the screen because they're very similar to every other brand these days, so there's not that much to say. What I will say is that the interface for the app is very clean, and more importantly, the fit in the ear is really good. This is a very, very comfortable earbud. Even the case is nice and slim and pocketable. So honestly, the user experience is for the most part really good. It's got great features, it's got great functionality. In the app, very clean, not some cheap third-party app. At least it doesn't look like some cheap third-party app, but I do wish they had named their EQ properly. Okay, that brings us to the mic quality check. This is the microphone of the Moto Buds Plus. It is noisy, it is very windy, so how is it handling the wind noise? I'm moving around so the wind is hitting it from different directions. What do you think? Is it any good? Okay, this is the Moto Buds Plus on an aircraft. I was taking a flight back, so I may as well have tested it. I will say the noise cancelling is really not bad for this price, but it does allow a lot in. So, it's at this price, you just don't get great noise cancelling. But amongst the options that are there, this seems to be the better one. Still, how does it handle the microphone? Because last time, in windy conditions, it did pretty well. And you can tell me what you think down in the comment section below. And also subscribe. Duh. Which brings me to a very quick conclusion, right? You've got okay audio, it's like fun audio for the masses. You've got good noise cancellation for the money. You've got good transparency for the money. And you've got a very comfortable in the ear, comfortable in the pocket earbud, which has a nice app, clean app that goes along with it and gives you the features that you probably want. So what more could you ask for? Well, it brings me to the three things that I think will detract from it. In order of low priority to high priority, here are the three issues with the Moto Buds Plus. Number one, the touch controls. They're there, they're fine, but there's no marking as to where you touch them. It's kind of at the top of the stem, but it doesn't actually tell you where to do that. So there's a lot of mistouches, and there's a lot of, a preventable user experience for sure. The second issue, the more major issue, is that it feels really cheap. Now I know this is only $110, but it feels like something that ought to be $40, $50 because the plastics are really thin, it's a really lightweight thing, and the end result is that it's really cheap feeling. And that is a very unfortunate thing because it shouldn't be. Other IEMs in this, even if you take the Nothing Ear A, it's full plastic, but it doesn't feel as cheap somehow. The OnePlus Buds Pro 2 is a phenomenal thing. Even the Buds 3, the non-Pro version, really well made, doesn't feel as cheap at all. I think the Moto Buds Plus feels very cheap. That's the next thing. Neither of these two are really deal breakers for me at this price point though. The real deal breaker though is the white noise. Now, when you have ANC, you often have some level of white noise. In a lot of IEMs, that's so low that it doesn't really matter for anyone. So I almost never talk about it. But in this case, the level of white noise was so high, it was so noticeable, it's horrendous. Okay, just to be absolutely clear, I'm not entirely sure the white noise is because of the noise cancelling. I think maybe it's because of the profile of the noise cancelling. I think whenever I'm in any broad spectrum noise, and this has been the case in many different locations where I've tested these things, it seems to let in a certain amount of noise that adds to the already existing active noise cancellation white noise. So what I'm saying is, for me, that was unbearable. If in your environment you don't experience that, or if your unit does not have that kind of white noise, then this is everything else is really good, but this one thing was so bad that it made the experience just unbearable for me. So try before you buy, or buy someplace where you can return easily within a couple of weeks, and really leave these on in your ear for a couple of days and really try it through. Because if you have that problem, you won't want these. If you don't have that problem, this is actually a good value proposition, genuinely. You guys already know if that there's value in this video, you know what to do, right? You know the buttons to push down. Yeah, okay. I'll see you in the next one. Stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.